baby had died inside of me, and the doctors are eager to get the fetus out of me. The next thing I remembered is I'm traveling. I'm moving very quickly, and there is this blazing, amazing light. Then I was taken to what I now come to know as the Akashic Record. When you get there, you can review your life. After I have finished reviewing my past lives, I am told that you must return. You have to return, and when you return, you have to take a message back with you. And it says, there's more to life than meets the eye. Life is eternal.
The A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast.
Today, I'm going to interview Reverend Norma Edwards, and she had NDE back in the 60s, and this was one of the most impressive NDEs I've ever heard. She developed certain after effects that are worth mentioning, but she also had the chance to see her past lives, and she got a message from the other side. And today, she's going to talk about it. Hello, Norma. How are you?
Well, hello. I am doing just fine. And how are you?
I'm great. I'm glad to have you here. So let's go back to that day when you had your first NDE. You were in London, right?
I lived in London, England, and I was pretty young then. I was 26 then, 26 years of age. And I woke up that morning. I had been away from work because I was not feeling very well. And I woke up that morning, and since I had been away from work, it was my day to return. So I wasn't feeling too well, but I showed up. And during the day, I began to experience excruciating pain. But I thought, first day back, I'll try to stick it out, us women. But just around 4 o'clock, I asked my supervisor, I worked at a typing tool in those days, can I leave? Because I was in a lot of pain. I entered the elevator of the building, and there was one other person in the elevator. And this is really critical to really everything that has happened to me since. She was a Hindu woman, and she was dressed in her Hindu attire with a dot on the forehead. And get into the elevator. And in those days, elevators were a little primitive, so that when you got to the ground floor, you had got to the ground floor with a jerk. Boy, and that jerk sent me into excruciating pain, and I collapsed. And she was very, very, she was, I guess, very well picked for the purpose. She got very, very quickly got people, to come and help her. And since the hospital was just a few blocks down the road, she figured that to call an ambulance, it would take too long. So they hailed a cab, and they put me in the back of the cab, and they got me to St. Bartholomew's Hospital in London. And hell broke loose. It really did. The pain was excruciating. And I was between being, conscious and unconsciousness. And I remembered opening my eyes, and I had 2 doctors, one on each side, running along with the trolley they had me on, and they took me into surgery because the baby had died inside of me, and I wasn't aware that I'd been dead for a while. And now here we were. I'm in excruciating pain, and the doctors are eager to get the fetus out of me. Well, the next thing I remembered is, of course, a shot, and I'm traveling. I'm moving very quickly. I'm no longer in pain, and I'm very conscious, feeling extremely well. The pain has gone, and I can see the operating room. I'm on this table. And there's nurses handing over stuff to doctors. And I'm absolutely confused because as far as I can feel, I'm okay now, and I want to let them know the pain is gone. I'm okay, but I cannot communicate that, see? And I'm kind of looking in and trying to figure out what's going on when I flatline. And I could see that the graph, you're looking at the graph stops, and all hell seemed to have broken loose in the operating room. But now I am thinking, how do I get because I'm on the ceiling, how do I get from the ceiling to the floor so I can let them know I'm okay? There is no need for all this anxiousness. And eventually I get down on the floor, and I'm running between the doctors and the nurses, and I'm going, hello, here I am. I am fine. There is no need for all this intervention. And then it dawned on me that nobody could hear me. I'm moving from between the doctors, and then I thought, well, maybe as women, we might be more intuitive. So I began to try to interact with the nurses, but to no avail. They could not hear me. I could hear them. I could see them. And then they picked up the instrument that was intended to bring me back, to shock me back. And in the consciousness I was in, I could see the electrical frequency around the equipment the doctor had in his hand. And the thought occurred to me that if they applied that much frequency to me, they would probably kill me because, you see, I don't believe I'm dead. I am very much alive and I'm processing. And so the thought came to me, I need to get out of this room before they accidentally cause my death. And with that, I found myself rising. I went straight through the ceiling. And now I'm moving through a very, very dark tunnel. When I say dark, darker than anything you can experience here on Earth. And I'm moving swiftly through the tunnel. I come around a corner. Lo and behold, there's the end of the tunnel, and there is this blazing, amazing light. It's like a kaleidoscope of light. And I'm approaching it. And as I approach and I get nearer to be able to exit from the tunnel, the light turns from multicolored to crystal clear white. And I entered the light. When I entered the light, there are no words in any language to adequately describe what I was experiencing. I experienced love at a level that cannot really be described. I became a part of the light, and I'm assuming because I could feel the intensity, I'm kind of thinking that I can see other souls. Now I know there were souls, then I thought they were just people. And I could see that they were relating to the joy and the beauty of the light. And my journey on the other side began. And first I was welcomed by a small group. And then I was taken on a trip. It seemed like I moved. My movement depended on my thinking. Like, for example, I'm thinking, well, I'm here. How do I move? How do I get from one place to the other? And as soon as I thought that, I started moving again and moving again. And I moved to an area where there is a river. And on the other side of the river, oh my God, there's all these people. I would say hundreds of people. And the interesting thing about that is that I kind of knew that I knew them all. Later on, I understood these were souls that I had lived with and encountered in many other lives before. And they were all there to greet me. Among them was my grandmother, my aunt, people who I could recognize had been deceased. And they greeted me. And but they were on the other side. I'm on one side of the river and they're on the other side of the river. But I could feel the love was just absolutely amazing. There was this radiance of love, and I'm absorbing it. I'm I'm just absolutely happy beyond the real definition of happiness here on earth. I'm extremely happy to see them and to meet them. And I feel I know them all. And they're kind of waving to me. And in waving to me, I could feel the love that they were sending to me and I was receiving. Then my aunt, who I grew up between my aunt and my mother, my aunt was like my second mother. She began to wade. She got into the water and she began to wade and beckoned to me to do the same. So I entered the water at my end and she entered at her end, and we were wading in the water to get to each other. And just as I got to the point where I could put my hand out to embrace her, a voice said, it's not your time. You have to go back. You have to return. I'm like, I don't want to return. This is a place of love. It's a place of joy, etc., etc. And then I was taken to what I now come to know as the Akashic Record. I was taken there, and now when you get there, you can review your life. And you review your life not only in stages of what you have just left behind, but you review your life in terms of lifetimes that you have lived. I guess the major experiences that I've had over many lifetimes. And one of the first ones that I recognized is that I was a child, and my parents were slaves. What was very interesting is we were in a field and my father was there, but I was very aware that I was not allowed to reach out. I was not allowed to reach out and acknowledge that he was my father. And I'm with my mother, and she's holding my hand, but I can hear the hooves of the horse that the master man is on. And he's in a row, and I can hear the sound of the whip as it hits the back of the slave. And that was primarily because you can't keep up. See, can't keep up. And now fear begins to enter me because I know I'm a child and I cannot work at the speed of the adults. So I know that when he comes around the corner on that horse, I will experience the whip on my back, you see. So I'm in fear. And he comes around. And when he comes around, it's like I have moved from one place on the Akashic record to another, so that I did not experience the whip on my back. After experiencing being the frightened kid, then he came around the master. The master man came around the corner on his horse. And it seems like the whole scene shifted. And now I am the master man on the horse, wielding the whip. And I'm very confused. Very confused. I was like, huh? How did that happen? See, I experienced life in a lifetime that was, the earth was kind of very dark. And we were walking through, many of us walking through a tunnel. And through that tunnel, we got to the water, to the ocean. And when we got there, it was mostly women and children, you see. And when we got there were many boats, many small boats. And they kind of ushered us into these boats. And the men pushed the boats out into the water. And I have a memory of them carrying torches, flame torches, because it's night or it's dark. And they're carrying flame torches. And as they pushed the boats out in the water, it was with a prayer that the women and children would survive because there is war going on. And the tribe in which I was born was losing the war, you see. So what they wanted to ensure is that the children and the young people would survive so that they can rebuild. They can rebuild their nation. And the boats were pushed out to sea with a little bit of food and water and women and children in it. The boat I was in sank, and we all drowned. And I have to make a note here, coming back to life today. In the year 2004 or 2005, here in South Carolina, I found myself doing water aerobics with 20-something other women. And Spirit opened my eyes to help me to understand that was a reunion of the souls that were in that boat. And oh boy, we had such a wonderful time together in that water. But that was the place where, you see, I had to acknowledge that I had overcome the fear of water. So it helps to understand that our past lives are important, and what we gain from them or what we learn from them, and has the ability to kind of like, you can rectify or you can change the experience in another life. And I believe that's what happened. The boat sank in that experience, and we all drowned. And from that point on, I walked the earth in any incarnation I was in, a fear of water. And in this incarnation, that got overcome because we all got together, and we had really a wonderful time. We're having a wonderful time in the water because there is no fear. We all observe. So then the next place I went to was seeing myself at the time when the disciples were on earth and they were teaching. And I found myself on a horse at the cross. And I'm observing. Christ is on the cross. And I have very mixed feelings. I saw another lifetime where, and I'm still working on why this one was so important. And as I'm talking to you now, the answer to that question I have been seeking for years just entered into my consciousness. I found myself at the place when Moses, in time of Moses, when was taken out of the bulrushes by a group of women. And just observing that with a great deal of fear that, oh my goodness, they're all exposing themselves to being killed for this, because Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Then I found myself at the cross. After I have finished reviewing my past lives, I am told that you must return. And I'm not happy about that at all. Why can't I stay? This is exciting. Why can't I stay? And I said, no, you have to return. You have to return. And when you return, you have to take a message back with you. Well, I was not a happy camp. And I said, what is the message? And it says, there's more to life than meets the eye. Life is eternal. Something I had never heard, experienced, or taught before. When they told me that I had to return, I asked the question, why? And they said, mission not accomplished. You have to return and finish the assignment that you were given. And I found myself moving very, very swiftly back through the tunnel and slammed into my body. And that created excruciating pain because, as you can imagine, the body had already relaxed. And it's kind of like Your soul is an extremely huge pattern. I would say humongous pattern. So squeezing that in, and it seemed like it had to be done on a given amount of moments, squeezing that humongous pattern back into the body was very painful. And I was not a happy camper. So now I'm back in the body, and I'm not at all happy. And there are two nurses sitting at a small table, and they're doing something with bandages, it looked like. They're working there, and it seemed like they are friends, and they both belong to the same church. So on the Sunday, because this happened on a Monday, on the Sunday, one of them was off and she went to church, see, and the other one had to work. So she is explaining the sermon to the one who had to work. And it's talking about, of course, hell and damnation. And here am I lying on this bed, and I got needles, everything down my throat or what have you. And I want to scream at her that there is no hell. You see, but I can't express myself. She's describing this sermon about if you don't behave and do what you're supposed to do, you'll end up in hell. And I'm not feeling it at all. Well, the next thing is, after they have this discussion, they turn on a little radio they had sitting there, and the radio had classical music pouring through it, you see. Only I'm lying in the bed and I can hear the music, but I can see the energy of the music, and I could see the various colors interweaving one into the other. Every instrument has a color, and I could see this, and I'm lying there and I'm thinking, oh my God, they're sitting right there. Can't they see what I'm seeing? And two male, I don't know if they were doctors or what have you, they came down the corridor and they stopped to speak to these two women. And I'm watching the interaction and I'm thinking, oh my God, they can't see what I'm seeing. It was really kind of very, very amazing. I'm looking and I'm seeing, and it's clear that these, they're having this conversation, but none of them can see, none of them can hear, none of them can perceive what it is that I'm seeing. And the journey back to living in the body began. The day I was released from the hospital, that was a very interesting day. My husband came to pick me up, and we were leaving to go get into this car. And we stopped at the crossing. And as we stopped, the car comes flying down, and the woman in front of me got hit by this car. And as soon as she got hit, she dropped to the ground, and I watched her spirit rising out of her body. And I began to talk to her. It's kind of like I began to say to her, it's okay, you're moving, you go through a tunnel. Once you get through the tunnel, because I'm seeing this, you see. She's in the tunnel, and I'm going, okay, it's okay, you don't need to panic. You will eventually come out into the light, etc., etc. And finally she comes out into the light and said, there you are. Now they'll take care of you. When I stop now, everybody's staring at me like I'm crazy. People are looking at me like, what in the world? Because they overheard the directions that I gave to her. And that was the beginning now of how to adjust. How do I adjust to normal life when you're walking around with the ability to see in the way that I'm seeing? And I am very, very much overwhelmed by the amount of information I'm carrying. Because there was like a download given to me. And now I'm looking at humans around me and I'm seeing them in a whole different light. And I'm not sure what in the world am I going to do with all this information. I did not have a name for what I experienced. Now I know it's the Akashic record, but at the time I didn't have a name for that. But I went to the record and was able to see and assimilate parts of what was there. So now I was extremely depressed. I did not want to be here. And I began to plan how I would get to the answer. I attempted twice, and First of all, once we got out to the hospital and got home, this is very interesting. Light bulbs started going out. I mean, I'd walk past a light bulb and it would die. I mean, it was really the most frightening to me experience. I'd walk past a lighted bulb and it would die. I mean, we had to start buying bulbs by the dozen to replace the light bulbs that had died, over and over again. So it was it's very painful because all I wanted was to be back on the other side of all that light and love and glory. And the journey began. They attempted to take my life twice. Both times I was not successful. And so I was determined that the last trial was going to be the end. I had this way of getting up in the morning and going walking. And there was a truck driver who parked his truck at a certain spot every morning. The British are very ritualistic. They do things. You get up in the morning, you do things at the same time every day. And I noticed that he would pull off at a certain time in the morning. Well, I literally got to talking to my husband to understand about how you pick up rapid speed and when a truck starts at a certain speed, how long it would take them, because he was a mechanical engineer. And I got it all worked out and kind of like paced the space that it would take for that truck to get to the speed that I felt would end my life. And so on the given morning, I got up and I actually took transportation, got on the bus, got off the bus at the roundabout where I figured it would happen. What do you know? He came around the corner. And the truck came around the corner and I stepped out into the middle of the street. And to this day, I will never understand how he managed to stop that truck within 2 inches of me. And the pipe was so, oh my God, I'm shaking my hands at the driver. And the people who had gathered are assuming that I'm shaking my hands at the driver because he nearly killed me. I'm shaking my hands at the driver because he did not accomplish what I expected him to accomplish. And then the third trial was, I had a nurse who lived close by, and I kind of found a way to bring the discussion to how many sleeping pills it would take to kill a human being. And I amassed them by going to the doctor. I can't sleep, and he would give me 2 at a time, you see, until I amassed the right amount. And my son at that time was 5 years old. And I remembered waking him up, feeding him, dressing him, sending him outside to play. And I entered the bathroom with a cup of water in my hand and the pills on the other. And I'm saying a prayer and asking God to take care of my son when I'm gone. And this is the most, to me, deepening one. And my 5-year-old son comes running into the bathroom and he goes, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," and he opens his hand. And he's got in his hand a caterpillar. Half of it is a caterpillar, and the other half is the butterfly emoji. And he opened his hand. He says, "Mommy, mommy, look at this." And something drew me to turn my hand over and flush the pills away. I picked my son up and I hugged him and I ran with him to play. I made the decision that whatever God has for me, I will live it. As a matter of fact, I think I made a deal with God. I said, whatever it is you want me to do, I'll do it. But when the time comes, I will expect that you would take me back to that place of love, joy that I had experienced. And the journey began. And here I am, 82 years of age and still waiting.
Who was the first person you told your story to when you came back? You were at the hospital. Did you tell the doctors, the nurses?
No.
Did you tell your husband?
No. Even until the point where we got divorced, I never told.
You never told anyone?
No, I didn't until my mother was dying. I was sitting at my mother's bedside and she was dying. And that was the very first time, this was years later, very first time I told the story because I wanted her to know where she was going and that she would not be afraid. But I held it to myself because you see, in those days, I'd never heard a story like that. And it was very interesting. You see, let's say, for example, my husband and I would be out and I would look up and I would go, that lady's got, and nobody knew the word cancer in those days. Talking about the 60s here. That lady's got cancer and she doesn't know it. And, he would look at me like, what are you talking about? Every now and again, I might say something and I could see it scared him. And so I never told him because he kept saying, I think you need to see a psychologist. And then after a while, he kept saying, no, I think you need to see a psychiatrist. Because there were things coming out of my mouth. Like, for example, okay, we go out and we come home. And I could see, let's say, two spirits sitting on the steps. And automatically I would go, because you see, it's like so natural to me. I would say, well, excuse me, aren't you going to get up? You need to get up so that we can get past. And he's looking at me. So he began to really think I was kind of losing my mind. But in point and in fact, I was seeing things that, human beings don't normally see. Or I might come around a corner and I'd burst out laughing because I might be seeing two angels doing something and I'm in laughter. And he would look at me and go, what is it? And I might say, well, over there, can't you see it? And so he began to think that there was something psychologically wrong with me. So I did not share. I did not share what I had experienced. First person I told it was my mother when she was dying. And it allowed her to pass without any fear. Took the fear away. And then I did not share it again, even though I ended up with a spiritual teacher, a very serious spiritual teacher. I never told brother, he was a 90-year-old man, I never told him. It wasn't until I came to the United States of America. I came to the United States of America, and now I'm working at New York Avenue Presbyterian Church, quite a big, huge church in Washington, D.C. And I'm working for the senior pastor. He was a very beautiful soul. And he walks into the office one day and he's very angry. He has a book and he drops the book in the trash. When I grew up with a father that felt that books were sacred, you know what I mean? So he dropped the book in the trash and I'm thinking, well, why would he do that? So when he left the room, I went in the trash and I pulled the book out. And the book was by the very first person who ever wrote about near-death experience. And I took the book home and I read it. And I thought, but this is true. Obviously, he was upset when he dropped the book in the trash.
Raymond Moody's Life After Life?
Raymond Moody's book, he dropped it in the trash. And when he went upstairs, I took it out of the trash and I read it. I stayed up all night and I said, oh my God, this is true. I've experienced this. So the next person I had a conversation with about my experience was Dr. Arthur McCabe, who's now deceased. And I went to him with the book and I said, he's not lying. He didn't make it up. I experienced it too. And then he listened. And it took about 2 or 3 days after that before he came back to me and he says, you need to talk about this. People need to hear this. And I said, no, I don't want to talk about it. But what he did was he got the staff to make they used to have once a month, they had a luncheon. And anybody could come, because, you had a lot of businesses around there. As a matter of fact, you had a lot of international businesses around the church. And they would come, you bring your sandwich and you bring your sandwich and the church provided something to drink. And there would be a speaker, you see. And so he had them do the flyer and didn't say anything to me. And like 2 days before this, he handed it to me and he says, you're the speaker. I said, what am I going to talk about? And he said, your near-death experience. And that was the 3rd time I spoke.
You were recently hospitalized a few months ago.
November.
In November, yes. And the first time you had your NDE, you received the message, mission not accomplished. But this time you also received another message. Can you tell us about Your most recent NDEs, please.
It was early morning, very early in the morning, about 5:30. Turned over and I could not breathe. Breath was very, very short. I could not breathe. And I said to my husband, call an ambulance. And he called the ambulance and and the ambulance arrived quickly. The ambulance arrived within 8 minutes. I think if they hadn't arrived that quickly, I wouldn't be here at all. And they really worked on me while I was in the ambulance. But still, I couldn't. Breath was could barely catch my breath. When the ambulance got to the hospital, there was a visiting cardiologist, it seems, and afterwards I was told this, who had come in to do whatever he was doing and was ready on his way to get on a plane and get back home. Being nosy and hearing this, the ambulance just came in with a patient with cardiac arrest. He came to see what was going on. And that meant he stayed a couple of days. And I flatlined twice. Very first time. And of course, the time I flatlined, I was ready. I know exactly what happened. I knew I'm going to go through this tunnel. I'm going to get to the other side. I was in heaven. And they brought me back once, just before I got there. And then I flatlined again. This time I made it through the tunnel. I got to the other side. But when I got to the other side, there was, a guy, and I think she was an angel, standing there. In other words, you are here, but we are going to control where you go and what you say and what you do. So I was guided, just in case I got it into my head that I'm going to stay, because, of course, I got there and I'm like, thank God, it's over. But it was a female, and she guided me. I went back to the record. When I went back to the record, I was shown that the mission is still not accomplished. Half of the mission has been accomplished. And as you know, that half of the mission took me for 27 years working with men and women in prisons and helping them to do some rebirthing. I did a lot of rebirthing work in prisons, 27 years, and now I'm retired, Now, once you get retired and you're longing to get to the other side, that's the longing. Now they're telling me I'm there and they're telling me, the mission is still not finished, because now you've got to return and speak to churches. Churches have a mission, but their mission is they're still stuck in, let's say, third grade level. And you and I know that in the school systems in the world, there's a little bit more than third grade. And so I was told that I was shown at the record that churches are limiting, have people locked in fear. And that fear has got to be released so that they can be rebirthed into awakening and expand consciousness, raise frequencies, and get on with life. There's more to life than meets the eye. Life is eternal. They reminded me of that again. There is more to life than meets the eye. Life is eternal. And if life is going to continue to be eternal, we cannot be caught traveling around in fear. Fear has to be released.
You've mentioned that Earth is a school. Can you talk about that?
Earth is the greatest school in all of the universes. And when we are in school, when we are in college, believe it or not, if you have 20 students sitting in that room, you got 25 spirits also there.
So can you explain how this relates to churches? And you once mentioned that churches are like grade school or primary school,
Oh, yes.
that they're necessary. Can you dwell on that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have I do a monthly circle, and this is what we're going to be discussing in the June month circle. And anybody listening to this, if they just send me an email, I'll put them on the list. But is a school, and we have to attend classes here in many lifetimes so that we can graduate. And when we graduate, it is not necessary to return to earth, but we begin to take our place in the ethers and in the, you want to call it heavens. But we take our place in the universe, and now we become guides and guards to people who are still learning here on earth. And that's how it works. And it might take, some people are lucky, it might only take 10 lifetimes here to learn everything. Some of us, when we get here, we get so caught up with the music and the sex and the everything else that what should be 10 lifetimes turns into 30 lifetimes. And so we're wasting time. We're wasting a lot of time. In 2025, this is kind of the year of where masses on planet Earth have to be awakened. And when they're awakened, they will discover there is more to life than meets the eye. There's more that is required of us here on earth than just enjoying life. It's a learning experience. And we take the experience in and we move with it. One of the things that I'm teaching right now is the fact that while we are here, we complain a lot about the conditions we are in. What we don't understand is experience teaches wisdom. And it is when we are imbued with certain levels of wisdom, then we can stop the reincarnation here on earth and we could go on to other dimensions. Does that make sense?
Yes.
2025 is a wake-up period. And that is why you have so many near-death experiencers who have come back to bring the message, to teach the lessons, and to help guide humanity to the fact that this is not the end. More to life to meets the eye. A lot. You see, when people understand that Earth is a school, you begin to think, well, after school, what is my assignment, you see? And that assignment may or may not be here. It may be here on planet Earth, or it may be on some other dimension. But life is eternal. We go on and on and on and on. Think about it. If not, the maker of human beings would have to be making human beings every year. We just bury them. That's it. Does that make sense?
So how can people contact you?
No. My email address is reprogramyourlife, as if it's one word, reprogramyourlife@yahoo.com. That's my email address, and you can reach me there. 2025 is intended to help us to understand the spiritual realm. It is intended to awaken us to an understanding that we are more than this body. There is a spirit inside of this body, and that spirit does not die. Earth is just one classroom of several in the universe. And we move from one to the other. I have spent, as I said, 27 years working in prisons with men and women. And from that job, when I am gone, I am leaving a few very enlightened souls to keep the work going. So I'm 82. I have lived the longest in my family. All the women in my family left before 60. And I'm still here. So can you see why I keep asking, isn't it time to go yet? Isn't it time to go yet? Been blessed with a beautiful family and experiences that have taught me that even when we think that life is going at its worst, we are being exposed to conditions that will teach, guide, direct, because sometimes we need the intensity so that we can hold on to it and carry what we have learned, take what we have learned through many other lifetimes in many other places. Many, many souls will experience and gain from. We are teachers, and we are teachers on many planets. You see, when we put our heads down at night, we go to sleep, we go home. When we go home, we are interacting with others who may not like the idea of coming to Earth, but it's our job when we get there now to teach them what we have learned and what we have acquired here, you see. So the work is continually, the work of sharing and loving and giving continues even during the process of sleep. How does that, have you heard that before? Have you experienced that before? I come back in the morning with, oh my goodness, I have notebooks and notebooks. You know, I'm working on another book. I have Awakening all day. I'm working on it. I have notebooks and notebooks. I come back, and one of the first things I do is make a record of where I've been during the night. There are many, many, many dimensions out there. Many dimensions. And one of the things I want to remind the church of is stop teaching the Old Testament. It's gone. It's over. We're in a new era. We have to understand the era we're in. Does that make sense, AJ?
Yes, it does. I think you are very privileged that you have had a very intense life, 3 near-death experiences, plus a mission not accomplished.
Don't remind me of that. Mission not accomplished. Lord have mercy. I think it must be stamped somewhere on my soul.
I hope people who watch this video start going to your monthly circles.
Monthly circle is free, but I also do individual counseling and group counseling. I have another group. The level 5 group is going to begin at the end of this month, and we are going to be talking about the soul. You see, there are a lot of people who are interested in spirituality, and then they get to meditation and they get stuck there. They think then the rest of their lives they're going to just continue meditating. There is a lot of work to be done. And I want to leave one message here that has sprung up from one of my students. And the message is, what if everything that seems to be going wrong in your life is in fact moving you into the right direction so that you can expand your consciousness? What if that is so? And that has been given to me. No, it's interesting. 1 minute you're the teacher, and the next minute you're the student. That has been given to me by a student of mine. So what if? What if, you know? And we need to think about that. We need to begin to think about it. Humanity has got to move a whole lot faster because we shifted from the 3rd dimension to the 5th. And a lot of people are really having struggles with being in the 5th dimension. That's why we have so many people leaving. They're struggling. There's a lot more to go. I've gone as far as 16. We got a lot further to go, you see. So we have got to kind of like, I've been told I've got to get to the churches so they can expand their knowledge and their thinking. The lessons you had that 50 years ago, you have human beings, you have beings incarnated here on earth that are looking for more than just the basics. And you and I, AJ, you got a role to play here too. I've got to be very, very, very active in that expansion of human consciousness. Over the past 6 months, I've been doing a lot of work on frequencies. Everyone seems to think if you get to get spiritual, you meditate and you meditate and you meditate. Meditation has a role, but there's a next level after meditation. And a big part of that is doing the work in terms of raising the frequencies. Because when the frequencies are raised, you can enter the gates of eternity and learn, even though you are still embodied in this body. But you've got to learn how to set aside the human experience and use your time at night to get to the places where you can expand your spiritual knowledge. We have a need for great expansion. And we are blessed that there are so many souls from all over the world. When I read some of these NDEs, I wish I could contact them all and says, I can relate to this part of what you said. I can relate to that part of what you said. Because we've been exposed. Now that we're exposed, we have got to lift our frequency higher. When we lift our frequency higher, the gates to our souls will be open to us. And we can return after a restful night's sleep with a whole lot more information that we can feed to humankind. It's been a blessing. And I have to say that the biggest part of my blessings is the trauma that I had to live through so that I can be transferred from one level to the other. God bless the work you're doing, AJ. Doing a wonderful work. Keep it going. And know that those on the other side will keep you and hold you up.
This has been the AJ Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.